Welcome to the section 4, Error Handling and Debugging. In this section, we're going to see what are the most common errors during HTTP requests. We're going to learn how to create an architecture to handle the errors in Android. In the third video, we're going to learn how to use interceptors to debug HTTP requests. And in the last video, we're going to use interceptors to modify a request. So this is what we're going to learn. We're going to understand what are the main errors and how to debug them. We're going to learn how to create an architecture to handle the errors. And we're going to create interceptors to debug and modify requests. Common errors during HTTP requests. In this video, we're going to see what are the most common errors when doing HTTP requests. We're going to talk about timeout, and we're going to show some real-life examples. So I'm pretty sure that we have seen these codes before, but this time we're going to see what we can do to solve each of those errors. So 400 means bad request. When you get a 400, usually means that the data that you're sending is not correct. So what you should do is check the API documentation and make sure that you're accessing the correct URLs and you're sending the correct data. 401, Unauthorized. You probably have missing or wrong credentials, token, or password. So it's very often when you're doing some requests, you have to provide password, tokens, and credentials. So if you get a 401, it usually means that you have missing or wrong credentials. 403, it's very similar to 401, but it says that you don't have access to that resource. So make sure that you have the correct access level to access that resource and double check the credentials you have. 404, not found. It usually means that the resource that you're trying to access does not exist. Usually, you have the wrong URL when these errors occurs. 405, method not allowed. It means that you're using the wrong method to access that resource. So for example, sometimes when you have to do a post and you're doing actually a get, or you should do a get and you're doing a post. So it means that the method that you're using is not correct. And finally, the 500 means server error, which is an exception raised on the server side. So this is not your fault. If you get a 500, it's an error inside the server. But usually these exceptions occur when you're sending wrong data. So what I would do and what I do when I get a 500 is I always check the documentation and make sure that I'm doing the request correctly. So what is timeout? Imagine that you're fetching profiles and then you request the server to provide you the profiles and you stay waiting for more than 1 minute, 2 minutes. At some point, the client would have to tell the user that the server is not responding. We call this timeout. So the timeout should be handled on the client side, which means that your application should be aware if you are waiting too much for the server response. So let's see how we can implement the timeout using retrofit. When we are using retrofit, we have to provide the OK HTTP client. And what you can do is you can actually set up this read timeout and define how much you want to wait, how many seconds you want to wait until you get a timeout error. It's quite simple, right? You just have to add this method on your client, and then this client you have to add on retrofit. Pretty simple. So that's it. So by the end of this video, you should be able to recognize what are the most common errors and what to do to try to solve them.